I think we can start by 7:03 itself.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for another edition of Poetry with Prakriti. Very briefly, let me tell you about the organization behind the event and the festival. Prakriti Foundation is an arts and culture NGO based in Chennai. It was founded in 1998, and it has been a space that has given scholars of all kinds, researchers, critics, poets, and of course artists of every discipline to be present, to share their work, to engage with the work on serious terms. Poetry with Prakriti is one of several festivals that the Prakriti Foundation organizes over the year. Usually it is an event in Chennai over the space of a couple of weeks, where poets from all over India and other parts of the world as well, whenever possible, come in and share their poetry with audiences across a variety of interesting venues, which range from the conventional, like bookstores, art galleries, things like that, but also the unconventional, software parks, metro rail, things like that. The idea being to take poetry out to the people. I'm going to ask the Prakriti Foundation to please paste Mr. Ramesh's bio into the chat for the benefit of our audience members who may be encountering his work for the first time. What we will be doing is we'll have Mr. Ramesh first reading his work. He is also going to be showing slides, and then we'll go to a conversation. He and I will chat for a little while, and we will keep space for you in the audience to also ask questions. We will ask you, if you see at the bottom of your screen a Q&A box, to use that Q&A box to ask any questions you have for our poet. You're of course free to chat in the chat window among yourselves and to comment, but direct questions that you have for Ramesh, please put only in the Q&A box. So welcome, thank you for joining us. We hope that you and the people who you care for are safe, that you are distancing, that you are masking, taking all the precautions that you have. And should anyone be ill, we hope that they will recover soon. This edition of Poetry with Prakriti is prompted by the fact that we cannot have public gatherings or travel in this country for a while, which is why Prakriti has taken it online. As for those of you who are coming in for the first time, since October, on the first 3 Saturdays of every month, we have had a different poet each time, reading their work, chatting with a moderator, and interacting with an audience. This will continue for the next few months until October. And we've had a galaxy of poets of different kinds, all coming in, sharing their work, having a good time. And this is a lovely archive of poetry today that we are building. Without further ado, let us get down to the main event of today, the main part of today. Ramesh, inviting you to come on screen and to please share your poetry with us. Welcome, Ramesh.
Thank you, Mr. Peter. Thank you very much for that introduction. I would like to, at the outset, speak about Prakriti Foundation. I have been associated with the foundation for quite some time now. Actually, it started in 2007 when my first book was published. It was called Soap Bubbles, and that particular year, I was part of the Poetry with Prakriti Festival. So I got the opportunity to share my haiku with a lot of many centers, many places, institutions. So it started there. Then later, I also had the opportunity to have my books launched by Prakriti Foundation. So my second book of haiku called Pebble to Pebble was launched by Prakriti Foundation. It happened in Amdavati Hotel It was a very interesting event. I mean, we all enjoyed. My friends and everybody liked it, and yeah. So my association it's more than a decade. It has been there with. No, I have been with touch with them. And I would also like to, so I would like to thank Prati Foundation, Ranbir Shah especially, and then Meera and Harish and Peter. There used to be one Mr. Santosh who used to be part of Prati Foundation. He's not, I think I just spoke to Meera and she said that he's working with some other, covering other areas of the foundation. Yes. So thank you very much, Priti, for giving me this opportunity again. I'm going to share my screen. So there is going. So I have a PPT with Haiku. So I will play the PPT with music, and I will also read out my code. Moonlit forest stream. My thoughts on the tiger are there. Moonlit forest stream. My thoughts on the tiger are there. Winter morning. The farmer's sneeze startles the newborn calf. Winter morning. The farmer's sneeze startles the newborn calf. Call of the jackals. In my dream, I go looking for them. Call of the jackals. In my dream, I go looking for them. So I live in a place where it's like the outskirts of the city. So it's a completely rural place, the school where I'm working now. So all my haiku, they have a touch of the rural, elements of the rural. In the cart, the garbage heap taller than the street cleaner. The cart, the garbage heap taller than the street cleaner. Haircut over, I wave to the lone fish in the tank. Haircut over, I wave to the lone fish in the tank. Long train journey. A baby boy talks to his brother in his own language. Long train journey. A baby boy talks to his brother in his own language. Daybreak. I drink tea facing the hill's silence. Daybreak. I drink tea facing the hill's silence. The silence as we drink the morning tea. Mother's wrinkled hands. The silence as we drink the morning tea. Mother's wrinkled hands. From the railway station, the curve of the road on the way home. From the railway station, the curve of the road on the way home. Full moon rise, the deer trots back to the forest. Full moon rise, the deer trots back to the forest. Single call of the night heron, so many stars. Single call of the night heron, so many stars. Long afternoon, the church spire shade reaches the beggar. Long afternoon, the church spire shade reaches the beggar. The ant hole too small for the potato chip piece. The ant hole too small for the potato chip piece. Thunder. An ant drops the big morsel. Thunder. An ant drops the big morsel. This is my second. This is my book, A Small Tree of Tender Leaves. My book, A Small Tree of Tender Leaves, was published last year, 2020. So what I read was from that collection, and now I'm going to read from Pebble to Pebble, which was published in 2014, and it was launched by Prakriti Foundation. Dim light in the bus. A tiny finger counts the stars. Dim light in the bus. A tiny finger counts the stars. Pause in the traffic. Small yellow leaves cross the road. Pause in the traffic. Small yellow leaves cross the road. Crimson rose. A little girl switches off the classroom fans. Crimson rose, it's a butterfly. A little girl switches off the classroom fans. Sunset. Someone's tent peg on the cliff. Sunset. Someone's tent peg on the cliff. Morning rain. The long gap between two sips of tea. Morning rain. The long gap between two sips of tea. I work in a school, so kindergarten, all in a row, small sandals. Kindergarten, all in a row, small sandals. Camera in my hand, the shoulder bag so light. Camera in my hand, the shoulder bag so light. Gregorian chant, moonlight on the tile domes. Gregorian chant, there's an error. Moonlight on the tiled domes. This is my first book called Soap Bubbles. It was published in 2007. Soap bubbles from a children's park break a traffic rule. Soap bubbles from a children's park break a traffic rule. Leafless trees, the sea visible again. Leafless trees, the sea visible again. Starlit sky. I touch a turtle before it enters the sea. Starlit sky. I touch a turtle before it enters the sea. So I've been exploring Haiku also. Unfocused. I am in a village with a group of students to survey the economic status of families. I meet an old woman who doesn't know how old she is. Her eyes are clouded. She used to toil in the fields during rice harvest. She points a trembling finger at her grandson who is looking for a job. The cataract in her eyes does not cover her feelings. In the semi-dark hut, I notice a carton which says fresh Kenor apples. The carton is full of dog-eared textbooks, probably belonging to the girls in the house who have stopped going to school, unemployment. Yet, you can see men playing card games the whole afternoon in the village square to pass the time. The survey over, we start moving. The rhythmic sound of the old woman's pounding beetle nut in the pestle fills the afternoon again. Long siesta. I'm not able to see the. Okay. Okay, long siesta. The cow lets a puppy lick the newborn leaf. Long siesta. The cow lets a puppy lick the newborn cow. Caterpillar. You are the butterfly, I the grieving heart of Chuangzu, Mashu. As if its only purpose in life is to eat, a caterpillar devours green leaves. Looking at it, you wouldn't imagine the light, spectacular life form that will come off as if from a miniature art book. Does a caterpillar dream of migrating over fields, rivers, and mountains? Within the deceptive silence of the chrysalis, creation occurs. Where does it get the symmetric whirls of colors on both wings? The newborn butterfly has to simply take off to flutter around, flitting here and there over the blue ocean. I ask myself whether the butterfly will still have memories of its previous self, a green caterpillar, crawling gingerly, without which, of course, it wouldn't be here. Deep blue hills. In the distance, chrysalis. Deep blue hills. In the distance, chrysalis. Strands. The puppeteer is old now. Age has gnawed his fingers, which once gently handled strings tied to expressions. There was a time when he entertained everyone in the village, young and old. It is long since the television snapped the threads from his hands. But even now, when he is sleeping on the porch, he dreams of a mythical story, and his fingers become alive and make subtle movements. Full moon. Overnight, the spider makes a complete web. Full moon. Overnight, the spider makes a complete web. Memories of a pair of scissors. Due to coronavirus restrictions, I asked the barber to come home to cut my hair. He agrees, and in a short time he's at the gate. I give him a mask and also ask him to sanitize the tools he has brought. He does it gingerly, including the trimmer. I put a chair outside in the courtyard, and he's ready to cut. He's the same barber who has been cutting my hair for the past 10 years. I tell him not to shorten it too much. He replies, I remember. He begins his job, and sitting in the chair, I could see the blue sky through the branches of a neem tree. In the saloon, I would be silent, sometimes would doze off. Now it is different. I start asking him questions about his job, his family. I get to know him better. He tells me that he was in the city for many years. He tells me that he was in the city for many years, working in a saloon before moving back to this town where he has his own shop. He speaks to me about his son. He tells me how he lost him 2 years ago. His son was working in an IT company after completing his diploma course in engineering. He was bitten by a snake when he was fast asleep. The snake had entered his room in the night. I could sense his sorrow without looking at his face. He continues to cut my hair in silence. There is only the sound of scissors clipping my hair. After the haircut is over, he trims my beard without me asking for it. He completes his job and I turn around and look into his eyes. Fading evening light, the glide of a lone stalk. Fading evening light, the glide of a lone stalk.
You perhaps unshare your video now? Unshare your screen, please. Ramesh, yeah.
Yes.
Great. Just a second. Right. So thank you for those poems. And I thought we'd start this discussion by chatting a little bit about your own journey in poetry. Yeah? So when would you say, when did you first encounter this in your memory, this animal poetry? What were the poems that first made an impression on you? What were the poets that originally drew you to poetry and were perhaps your original icons?
Yeah. So I was a student of physics, but then I was interested in literature. So I used to borrow a lot of literature books and novels and poetry and read. I used to live in Madurai, and I would go to the library, Kamraj University Library, and borrow books there. So I came across D.H. Lawrence and Rilke and Robert Frost and many other poets, Ezra Pound, and later Jack Kerouac. So all the Beat Generation writers. So I came across these writers, and parallelly, I was also exploring Tamil literature, Tamil novels and poetry. And there was one writer called Sujata who was actually translating many of the works published in various parts of the world into Tamil. And these would come in some magazines, and I would read them. And that's how I got inspired to write haiku. It was writer Sujata, who introduced me to haiku. And I, as a college student, I started writing poetry. And in 2003, I sent some poems to the All India Poetry Contest, and it got selected. And then I thought, no, I could be. People also thought, my family, that he could write poetry and he could do something on that line. Earlier, there was a lot of. They thought I was wasting my time reading all this literature and writing poetry. But then when this happened, they thought, okay. And I was kind of encouraged to go on with poetry.
So what brought you to haiku particularly as your form of expression, haiku and haibun, the senryu, this Japanese minimalist poetry? What attracted you about it? What started you on your journey within? Because that seems to be your favorite form.
I'm quite new to haibun, so I'm still exploring because, of course, the last few years I've been sending them to some magazines, but still a lot to learn. Even haiku is something which it's like a sea. There is nothing like you have arrived at this. Every time you have to be a learner, you have to see things with fresh eyes. Knowledge of haiku is not something which will really help in that sense, like because contact with things around you and your senses being open and capturing the decisive that moment, the aha moment, is always a fresh thing. Talking about your, responding to your question, I like haiku because with few words you can communicate a lot. You can say a lot just with a few words, and so that brevity and it has its own multi-layered component element. These things drew me to haiku.
So when you look at forms that migrate from one language to the other, there are frequently interpretations of what should migrate and what should not. For instance, when people work with, say, the ghazal in English, in Urdu, there is the verb forms assist in the rhyming, the refrain, that kind of thing. With haiku, when people write haiku in languages other than Japanese, there have been some thoughts on what constitutes the haiku then. For instance, do you need to keep the 17 syllables? Another person says that, I've heard the point of view that says that it's a one breath poem. It doesn't matter about the syllables. There are thoughts about the break, the observation and the break, things like that. So what to you is the essence of the haiku?
To me, the essence of haiku is to show and not tell. To show and not tell, not explaining, just show it and leave it. The reader, if the poem has a certain, in doing that, no, you can invite the reader to participate in the experience, and there will be a certain resonance to it.
So since form appeals to you, I must ask also, aside from haiku, have you experimented with other poetic forms, and what were your experience with those?
Yeah, I've explored free verse. I've been, I also got published one collection of free verse actually. But then my focus has always been on haiku, even though now of late I have not been writing free verse. My focus has been on the Japanese forms, various Japanese forms of literature. So yes, but I have explored free verse as well, reading B.H. Lawrence and Rilke and so many other images poetry like Frogpond and other, Allen Ginsberg, and so I have read these works of these poets and been inspired by them, and I have tried free verse as well. Yeah.
Have you experimented with forms that are closer to home in the sense of, the schools of poetic form in Tamil, in other Indian languages as well? Have you played around with playing with those as well?
Yeah, I have actually. As a student, I would write Tamil poetry also. Like I wrote Tamil poetry, and my first poem was published in the Tamil magazine. So I wrote and I was surprised. Like I didn't even know that it had come, and somebody told me that this poem has come in a magazine. Do you know? He asked me, my friend. So I was surprised. So I've explored Tamil. Again, what they call Pudu Kavidegal. They say that's the form. Pudu Kavide is it is like it is a deviation from the classic way of writing poetry, like where more like free verse in English. Yeah.
Okay. So like most Indians, you are at least bilingual. Right? Most of us tend to speak at least 2 languages with some competence, some of even more. What is your, since you've chosen to read today, what you've chosen to read today is a Japanese form rendered in English. You have written in Tamil in the past. What is the language that you go to for poetry? What is your natural poetic language? And why do you think that is so?
I think English is very convenient in that sense, for especially to write a haiku, because I have found it convenient. But I have also thought of, I started some process once. I think Prakriti Foundation asked me to send some poems which were translated. I translated them into Tamil, and it was pasted on auto rickshaws, inside auto rickshaws, and I was part of that particular event. So I am also thinking of translating all my haiku into English, Tamil later. It's a long process. I've started doing, but it will take time.
So what do you think gets, why did haiku not form? I mean, if you can write haiku in English, you could also perhaps write it in Tamil. So why do you think that you gravitated towards English to haiku? Does the language lend itself better in your opinion?
No, I think one of the reasons I would say, like the Tamil haiku which I earlier read. Nowadays, I think there are very good Tamil haiku coming out. But when I read the beginning, there were Tamil haiku published in magazine. They were very shallow. In the name of haiku, they wrote some political, some making fun of the people and other things, which I thought I couldn't connect to that. So at the same time, I was reading a lot of other poets, right? English haiku poets in English. So they seem to appeal to me, and so that's why. But now I'm not saying that Tamil also. Right now, a lot of Vadivel Rajan is there, I saw him here, and he's a Tamil haiku poet, and he also writes in English. And I feel it has the capacity actually. There is a lot to explore for me. Actually, I have to learn and explore.
Technically, the haiku is not supposed to be a vehicle for satire or political comment, or it is a season poem, right? It brings you the essence of a season. I mean, you do have Senryu, which is the broader category, which is the same basic thing, but it's not restricted to the season, and to a broader extent, nature. Yeah.
That's right. Yes.
You also shared Haibun for us. Haibun is not as well known as haiku, as Senryu. So what would you, could you perhaps describe this form to those of us who are coming on it, perhaps without as much experience as you have?
Oh, okay. Haibun is a form of writing where there is prose linked with poetry, and the prose is kind of tight and almost like haiku. It's like written in a very tight manner, no extra words, and you keep it really crisp and clear. And you also, at the end of it, even in between, you have haiku. Then I think even this form it keeps evolving. They write the tanka in Haibun, and they bring in many other forms into Haibun. But since I am a learner, I stick to haiku alone. Usually at the end of the prose piece, or sometimes in between, I have a haiku, which is like connected to, indirectly connected to the text, the prose above. So there is a connection, but it's not direct. It is indirect. So this is something which I'm exploring.
We spend a little while on your poetic practice. How do you approach a poem? Is there, for instance, a time which you devote in your day you devote to poetry, or is it leading from inspiration, and then you say put down a thought, and then from that first impulse, from what takes place in your mind to the final poem that you're willing to let go to the world? How do you work on it? I mean, the haiku especially is a word that is a form that is sculpted to such a degree that it seems effortless, and it seems that it could be easy. but anyone who tries it knows that it takes a hell of a lot of work to get it just right. So could you tell us how you approach a poem?
Right. It's a very interesting question and important question. See, I think to me, experience matters. In the sense, like even though they are talking about writing haiku using the imagination, I feel I go by experience actually. Like I have to experience something. For example, the soap bubble poem which I read, soap bubbles from the children's park, break a traffic rule. I actually witnessed the thing. So I was standing at the signal, and these bubbles were drifting across. And then when I looked around, I saw this small park there. So it is an experience which I have registered, and it's just being there to register the moment. That to me, haiku is that to register the moment.
And then how long does it take from your registering of the moment to your being satisfied with a poem, willing to let it go into the world?
You once you get back, say for example, sometimes you come back, you have registered it, so you work with it in your mind, the lines and words there itself actually the spot. Or we come back and you have a notebook and I have a notebook which I write it, and then I try to remove some. The experience is the same, but I kind of remove some words and try to adjust certain things and to get the form proper.
So Pebble poem was the one that stayed with me after the entire set of readings. I could just see it. And in fact, the next few after that, I didn't quite register because my mind was still seeing soap bubbles crossing a road in busy traffic. Yeah, so that's a lovely capture of that moment. Perhaps before we head to see what we have in the way of audience questions, how do you, the part that poetry plays in your life, you have a day job, you teach. How do these influence each other? How does teaching influence your poetry? How does poetry influence your teaching? How do the other aspects of your life, because you are not just a poet or just a teacher either, right? How do these various aspects of K Ramesh work towards and with each other?
Well, the haiku works on the principle of essence. There is a certain essence there. So I think in teaching also, the gist, the essence of something, to communicate that is the crucial thing. How to communicate the essence of a concept, for example. In a textbook, there may be so many things, but there is a certain essence which is required, which is important and vital. So how do I transfer that to the student, and how do I bring in that element and transfer it across?
And how does teaching come into your poetry?
I didn't get, what is that?
How does the teacher in you, how does the teacher in you influence your poetry?
Probably, yeah, the teacher in me looks at the form, the structure, proper structure, right? To get a proper structure, read it several times and see that it is fine. The musical element in the haiku, words are, no word should stand out, kind of thing. Like choosing, selecting words, right? Appropriate words.
So from your choices today were to, for one, read, but also show us your poem in text, and text that was laid out in illustrated background. And you added an element of music that played behind it. So clearly then you are not one of those people who thinks that poetry should only be read off the page without ornament of any kind, or and the performance element is a part of it for you as well. Would that be an accurate judgment to come to?
Yes, the music which I played was actually connected to Tibetan healing chant, healing music actually. So I thought it would be appropriate to have music in the background, because I have seen people reading haiku abroad, like with a bell. They ring a bell uh, and then they read and then like that. So I thought it's a new thing which I thought I could use. PowerPoint I use because sometimes while reading, these are very short poems, right? So if the reading is not clear for some reason, like it may not reach the audience. So I wanted to show the poem on the screen so that this is what I'm going to read. So there is a contact with the with the poem.
Like a lot of practitioners of the short poetry forms, shairi and whatnot, they do the rhetorical device of reading twice, a pause, etc. And I saw that in your reading as well. What is my memory is failing me at this point. There's a form of haiku that uses multiple haiku together in the same way that multiple shares, can be put together in a ghazal. That there is multiple haiku that are put together in one longer poem. What is that called?
It's called Renge, where you have the opening verse and followed by shorter couplets kind of thing. It's Renge, and it is a form which when some haiku poets decide to combine, join together and write the form. There are magazines which cater to Renge form of poetry.
Okay. And have you experimented in that direction?
Yes, I have experimented that whenever we had this poetry, we have a haiku society actually in India. So when we meet actually, one of the events would be Renge, like we try to do that. Just combine the link to verse form.
Yeah, I have a friend who I think is part of the circle, Ramesh Raghavan is, and Rushal Potkar, who read with us a few months ago, also writes haiku and haibun. So
Yeah.
basically a community of people
Yes.
here. Community is so very much necessary, I think, or rather, let's say that's what I think, the community. What do you think about community and poetry and having a community of poets? How does that
Yeah,
for you as a poet?
I think it is very important to have this kind of a community because one thing is we can learn from each other. In fact, right now some of the participants are here are they are part of a small group and happen to be their mentor. There is something which is going on in the Haiku Society of India, I mean, Haiku Society, Indian Haiku. So what is happening is we have some 6 mentors handling a small group of poets. They are actually poets. They are very accomplished poets who have published their works in various magazines, but still they are part of this mentor program. So I happen to be one of the mentors and very happy to have my students there. I wouldn't say that they are my students. In fact, I learned from them. So there's nothing like a student or a learner. So in my school, there is something called educator, learner, educator. So you learn from the student, and you also the student also learns from you. So it is like that. I think it is a rich, it is a very useful thing to have a community and also some community which tries various things. Yes.
Yeah, I think all the best educators know that learning, teaching is a two-way process. And when you teach, you learn. The best teachers are always learning as well. It's not just putting out the same lessons every time. And one last little bit before we do have some comments in the chat, which I will get to. Someone starting out writing poetry today, young person perhaps, or an old person who has not thought of themselves as a poet. Life got in the way, or they have important things to do and earning a living and that kind of thing. But someone who's approaching the creating of poetry for the first time and is thinking about it, what would you offer them in the way of perhaps advice or a signpost or guidance, or this is what to look out for? Anything that you could offer a new poet? Sorry, Ramesh, can you hear me? Your video seems to have frozen. Harish, is it just me or is Ramesh's video frozen?
I cannot see him either.
All right. Okay, so perhaps if you can, just.
Yeah, I think he'll resign.
Yeah. So I'll just, in the meantime, read out the comments that we have got before getting into the questions, in the hope that Ramesh is able to sign back in.
He is back.
Wonderful. Still signing in?
Yes, sorry, my connection went off.
Yes. No issues. So the question I was asking when your connection died was for new poets, people coming into poetry for the first time. What would you offer in the way of advice or suggestion or guidance?
I think it is very important for a young poet or a young person who is exploring poetry to read a lot of poetry. I think it is very crucial, before writing. I think one has to actually read a lot and also be open to experiences and figure out things. I think it is important. Reading a lot and also kind of be open to experience and asking questions, not taking things for granted. Yeah.
So I'll just read a few of the comments that we've had so far. Srilata says, so in the moment, Ramesh, thank you. Preeti Isola says, a beautiful presentation, enjoyed each moment of it. Thank you so much. Seen alive with your micro observations. Thank you. As Srilata says, so in the moment. And we have a request from Sivakami, which perhaps you can consider a little later. Please read a Tamil poem or even a couple of lines. Several people have commented on to register the moment. Someone has also commented that the Antol one was really amazing. And yeah, Sivakami was asking, do you do the PowerPoint yourself or does someone assist you? And I like that question. With the illustrations, were they yours?
Actually, my daughter Anita, she helped me to come up with the presentation. In fact, I told her I would give her some template. She said, no, it's okay, I'm going to make it for you. And she made it, she made the template and yeah. Thanks to her, she made it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to the questions now. Neera Kashyap asks, what was the influence of J. Krishnamurti on your poetic journey? And part of the question I think you've already answered, and why haiku? But yeah, let's stay with the J. Krishnamurti influence.
I think haiku is in a way to be, it is talking about to be in the moment, to be in the here and the now. J. Krishnamurti is also talking about the same, right? To be in the present and not dwell in the past or in the future. So it is all in the present, being in the present completely. So there's a lot of connection. In fact, way back, I wrote one article for the journal, Krishnamurti Journal. They have a journal, foundation, they bring out a journal. I wrote about haiku and J. Krishnamurti's teachings. I connected that. And to me, there's a lot of similarity.
All right. A question from Muskan Ahuja. What you write so well, sir. Please share what helps you into simple writing. Do you follow any technique?
I think importance is the experience. I think and being open to the moment, catching the moment.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think.
Sorry, please carry on.
I think, see, technique is one thing. We can work on the technique, but more important than the technique is the availability, and a sense of intuition which goes into haiku. I think it is most important thing a certain intuition acting in the haiku. It has to be intuitive. Actually. It has to have some connection. For that to happen, one has to be present to register that moment. Yeah. That's it.
I think that really much of meditative practice of various kinds, and I'm new to the world of meditation. I've been working with a few people who are teaching me a little bit about it. And I think the essence of haiku, the essence of meditation, all of those is that the presence, the being there, the experiencing it is very much a part of that. Would you say?
It is actually because uh, only when the mind is to me it is an index of my kind of how I live. When I am totally preoccupied with things, I will not write haiku, right? Because my mind is occupied with various things. So it is a kind of an index. It tells me whether I'm in tune with what is to be in the here or the now. So if I am writing haiku, it means that to be that I think I'm not being kind of leading on the surface line. Yeah.
There's a comment from Mr. Balakrishnan who says, Sujata inspired you. Could you perhaps spend a minute or two telling us how Sujata inspired your work?
Yeah, Sujata, what he did was like he translated some of the Japanese haiku into Tamil, and he would post them on magazines like Tamil, Another Beginner, and such magazines. Or sometimes would write articles in Kanayali magazine. So I would read those magazines those days when I was a student, and I was quite impressed by. In fact, the potential of haiku, the power of haiku came to me when I read his work, his translation, and his essays on haiku. Later, when I first published my book, he was alive actually. He passed away I'm not very sure, a few years back. So I wrote to him asking whether I could send my haiku books to him. He said, "Yeah, send two." I thought send two books. I thought actually he wanted only two haiku. So, but I sent him two of my haiku collection, and he was writing an article over a period of time. He was writing an article in the magazine Ananda Begitan, Katradum Petradum. That's one title he had. So in that he translated my poems into Tamil and he commented on a haiku actually. This haiku. Yeah. The haiku was like this: power failure. Closing my book, I listen to the rain. Power failure. Closing the book, I listen to the rain. So that he translated into Tamil.
Do you remember the Tamil?
Vinsar Tarangal, something I forgot. Not exactly.
That's good. That's good. Siddhartha Menon has a question on form. Rigid syllable count is clearly not important to you. I was wondering about line divisions. In haiku, is it essential to have 3 lines? The Night Heron and Stars poem occurred in a single line.
First, I'm very happy to have Siddhartha Menon here. He's my friend and he's a fellow Krishnamurti teacher. I'm very happy that you are here, Siddhartha. Thank you. Yes. Haiku is, actually in English, traditionally in English, if you put it that way, it is a 3-line poem. But then there are also a single line haiku. Haiku poets write a single line with a break in between, either a suggested break or a break like some dot or like some ellipsis kind of thing. Somewhere they indicate there is a shift between the first part and the second part. So they write the single form haiku, single line haiku as well. So some recently I heard there are haiku poets who are writing haiku like with 4 lines. So these are something which are like evolving, but I will stick to 3-line and probably a single line haiku.
And the syllable count is not important to you.
Syllable count in English is not so important. Actually, it is not the 575. It will be shorter. Actually, they say 14 syllables or something. So it's not so important. What is more important in a haiku is as I said, to show and not to tell, right? That is the most important thing. The tendency is to say, communicate, to share a lot of things. That is possible in a free verse, right? Which is not wrong. I'm not arguing with that. But in a haiku, you don't. It's a very suggestive poem. Like you just leave it to the reader. A lot of things happen in the reader's mind. It continues in the reader's mind. There is no end to a haiku. There's no full stop at the end of a haiku, literally speaking, and also metaphorically. Like it continues. Yeah.
Jayashri Manial asks, you talk about observation and registering the moment. Do you always write based on real moments only? I'm not sure about this term, but I guess it makes sense to you. Does desk haiku ever feature in your collection, or do you manufacture them?
No, I actually believe in experience. Like I need to go through an experience to write a haiku. So I maybe there are sometimes like a picture haiku or something. You look at a picture, but there are again that's very rare. But I personally I feel I even suggest that one has to go through a certain experience to write a haiku. There has to be a mild surprise in the haiku, and that experience is the one which gives the mild surprise.
Is it surprise or realization? What is it?
Both actually. Mild surprise comes with the realization.
Sivakami notes, I remember one of your poems written 25 years ago. It was a big poem about an eagle, and the last line was, I became the eagle.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It's wonderful that you have, we're talking about community, and people like Sivakami are so much a part of that ecosystem of encouragement. One time I came to Prakriti 10, 12 years ago. She was there at all the readings and encouraging, audience member. Community is so big a part of this. I don't think we have any more questions from the audience, and we are just about 8 o'clock now. So before we end, I was wondering if you would like to share a few more poems with us. It's always nice to end with poetry rather than conversation.
Yes, okay. Just a few poems I thought I will share. Both to do with the current situation. First, actually, I took Covishield injection vaccination yesterday or day before, and it has been actually my body is actually it was reacting to that vaccination, and I took some Dolo 650, and I thought, no, this is an opportunity to kind of show some other windows, to share with at least few people to look at nature, or to create small windows for people to peep out something else, not what is happening currently. The mind is occupied all the time about whatever is happening in the city, in Chennai. So actually, I would like to thank all the attendees I'm really happy that they are here to listen to my work and listen to my reading, and I thank them all. They have taken time to come here and to be part of this event, and I really I'm grateful to them to listen to my work. Thank you. So I would like to read a few of them. So, in the absence of sirens, a minor tries different notes. In the absence of sirens, a minor tries different notes. A long day of lockdown. In my mind, I take a local bus to the beach. Long day of lockdown. In my mind, I take a local bus to the beach. Under quarantine, I begin to take care of a small potted plant. Under quarantine, I begin to take care of a small potted plant. Outside COVID ward, with masks on, we talk about oxygen cylinders. Outside COVID ward, with masks on, we talk about oxygen cylinders. Her recovery from COVID, the crows she feeds still come to the terrace. Her recovery from COVID, the crows she feeds still come to the terrace. Yeah, so I thought I would share like the latest ones about the situation.
That actually answers a question that I had in my head, which I didn't remember to ask, which was the poet who writes haiku. Haiku is so much about nature, about seasons. What does what haiku can you write in lockdown? And there you are. I particularly like the one about the potted plant. Just read that one more time, please.
Yeah. Under quarantine, I begin to take care of a small potted plant. Under quarantine, I begin to take care of a small potted plant. Yeah. So I had to stay in a place where, and there was only the small pot.
And the haiku poet finds that one aspect of nature that he can nurture.
Yes.
Yes, beautiful. I'm going to just quickly say, request Meera and Ranveer to, if they feel like it, turn on their videos so that I can take a screenshot for our files. Harish is not in a position to turn on his video, I think. Everyone, please send good vibrations and healing to Harish, who's not well at the moment. And yes, give me your smiles, please, folks, so that I can take a nice screenshot for our files. Thank you. Thank you, all of you in the audience, for joining us today. It was very nice of you to make time for this evening of poetry. And I hope that all of you are safe, that you're taking precautions, that your loved ones are safe. Thank you, Prakriti Foundation, for this lovely festival, for letting me be a part of it, for sharing poetry with all of us. And thank you, Ramesh, for this lovely evening haiku. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Meera, and thank you, Ranveer. Long time I met, I think.
Yeah. Oh, and yes, on behalf of the audience who are not visible to you, my round of applause for you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And everyone, we will, next Saturday, we have an open mic, which will bring in young poets, not young, emerging poets from all over India. We've invited people via various groups to join us on that. The weekend after that will be a Manjula Padmanabhan, the ongoing retrospective that Prakriti is doing of Manjula Padmanabhan's plays and performance spaces. And then in the first week of June, we'll be back again to poetry. We hope you will join us. Thank you. And again, thank you, Ramesh.
Thank you, Peter. Is it possible to get the chat maybe sometime later?
Yeah, Prakriti will have the file which also has the chat.
Okay, not immediately. I think.
Yes. Harish will be able to share that with you later. He will have access to it. So bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thanks. Many thanks to all the attendees. Thank you.